Hello everybody and welcome to Nerd in the Sun. I'm Chris and today I want to talk about something that I really miss, and that is Comic-Con. Please subscribe, crush that like button down below. That really helps out the YouTube algorithm. And without further ado, let's start the show. It's around that time when Comic-Con would usually be happening if it weren't for viruses. Really hurts to say that. So I've been thinking about Comic-Con quite a bit and how much I miss it. And I'm even wearing a shirt that I got at Comic-Con, which I find to be hilarious. Very hilarious shirt. So let's talk about it. Why do I miss Comic-Con? Well, I feel like there's a little backstory I need to talk about so that this makes perfect sense. When I was growing up, I was always a nerd, as you may be able to tell. That's always been my MO. When I was growing up, nerds weren't cool yet. I know, kind of hard to imagine now with all the Marvel films and everything, Comic-Con being absolutely gigantic, but I grew up in a time when nerds were a little bit outcasted. And growing up, Comic-Con was the sort of safe haven. It was amazing. You could go to Comic-Con and you would be surrounded, absolutely surrounded, by literally hundreds of thousands of other nerds. It didn't matter if they cared about the same things as you. It didn't matter if they were anime nerds or if they were video game nerds or if they were, into Pokemon cards. There's so many things that nerds are into, and that's the big deal, is they share a culture. It's the only culture I feel like I've ever had growing up. And so this was really important to me. So that's a big reason why I enjoy Comic-Con so much. Every single year I get to go to the #1 nerd organization on the planet. And I do feel extremely lucky to be able to go every single year. So even though I'm all grown up now, it still feels really cool to be around that many nerds. I don't think I'm ever gonna grow out of that, to be honest. And why would I want to? At Comic-Con, there is so much to do. There's video games to play. There's famous people to see and very rarely to meet. You have to wait in some seriously long lines in order to meet those famous people. But it can't be worth it. I got to meet Terry Crews one time. Comic-Con has the latest information on new games, new shows, new movies, new everything. They release all of the big information in the nerd world at Comic-Con, and you get to feel like you're a part of that when you're at Comic-Con, seeing for the very first time the next big Marvel movie that's going to come out, a preview of it, or finding out that there's some obscure video game that you used to play as a kid and now they're making a TV show out of it. I mean, it's just so cool. There's other things that Comic-Con has that nobody else has too. They have toys that don't exist anywhere else in the world, exclusive items. They have entertainment galore. They have brand new video games that are just being released. They have video games that have been released, but only recently. Sometimes they even have retro video games, which is really cool. They have these extra side rooms every single year where you can go down and you can play card games, you can play old video games that some kind of person who set the event up brings so that people can really nerd out on the original Smash Brothers and stuff like that. They have other cool group events that you can attend like that. And they even have furniture items and real live weaponry, like swords, katanas, and nunchucks. I've literally seen nunchucks and magic staves at Comic-Con. I don't know why, it's just awesome. There doesn't need to be a reason for it to be awesome. But the best parts about Comic-Con are the things that you would never expect. You would never be able to expect. They just happen. I remember one year I was dressed as Rick from Rick and Morty, Rick Sanchez, and I had a pretty good getup. I was walking around the main floor, and lo and behold, Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon were having a signing session. Couldn't believe it. Dressed as Rick. The creators were there, signing autographs, I think, doing other things. I walked by them, and I didn't want to wait in the line, so I just said hi. Thanks for creating me. They kind of responded, sort of. They looked at me. It was great. I really enjoyed it. It was a really fun experience. Another year, there was a full-on battle between people that were dressed in medieval armor. They had swords, morning stars, One person had 2 daggers. I don't know what was up with that, but there were 2 sides and they collided, and it was really loud because it was metal on metal. And this was at Comic-Con. This was in the back of the Comic-Con overlooking the San Diego Harbor. It was so cool and unexpected. You know, I walked out there to get a breath of fresh air, and I found knights in shining armor. Pretty cool. So there's a lot of cool things going on with Comic-Con. There are apparently cons that I've heard of. I don't know that I believe that they're true cons because all of the pros really outweigh it for me. But, you know, there's a lot of lines. There are a ton of lines, and some of them are so big that they last for literal days. People will stand in lines at Comic-Con overnight, and they will get water bottles and snacks so that they don't die while they're sleeping there. They get their sleeping bags and their tents out, and they stay there for a whole night, sometimes even 2, to get into the legendary Hall H. Hall H.
Hall H! Hall H! Enter. Now I will conserve battery power.
Ooh, the darkness. And there you get to see some of the really cool stuff. Like when Marvel releases a new thing, they're always in Hall H proclaiming it. This is a bummer. I mean, lines that are that long aren't great. But you don't have to go in the lines. You don't have to stand in a single line when you go to Comic-Con. You will miss out on things if you don't stand in a line, but I rarely stand in more than like 3 lines a year, just for things that aren't gonna take that long and that I really wanted to see. So I don't see the waiting in lines as a con. Occasionally, waiting in lines is actually kind of nice because you're so tired from walking around all the time that you need a breather and you just sit down against a wall or, you know, on the ground. Another con that I hear people complaining about is the heat. It gets hot inside the convention center in San Diego, especially at the heart of summer at the end of July. That's a viable point. You know, it does indeed get hot. And the heat is something that most people don't like. It's a bunch of sweaty people grinding together, creating the heat. And that's unfortunate and a little gross, you know? But the thing is, it's hot outside too. It's not like if you were to walk outside, you'd suddenly be in the cold, you know, freezing Arctic, I don't know, North Dakota in the middle of winter. It's not like that at all. It's usually in the upper 90s, maybe even over 100 degrees outside of Comic-Con. So you step out of the frying pan and into the fire. It can be really intense during the summer, but in my opinion, totally worth it in order to go to Comic-Con and have this crazy experience. Another thing that Comic-Con has are events. Outside of Comic-Con is downtown San Diego, the Gas Lab area. It's kind of crazy anyway on a weekend, and Comic-Con mostly happens on a weekend. There's Wednesday night has preview night. Thursday is not a weekend, but Friday, you know, it's the start of the weekend. Saturday is the biggest day of Comic-Con, and then Sunday is kind of the smallest day of Comic-Con. It's usually considered Kids' Day. Gaslamp is always crowded during the weekend, but on Comic-Con, it is insane. There are maybe 1/3 as many people outside or more as there are inside, because everybody who didn't get in wants to have that feeling that they're at Comic-Con. Even if they're not, they just want to feel like they're part of something bigger. And I totally get it. I go out there and still feel like part of something bigger. I still feel like it's amazing. Usually the people wearing the stilts are outside. They'll be out there literally 13 feet tall and dressed up as some really cool character. And they will just be walking around, people taking pictures of them, and maybe they'll have a few other crew members that are dressed as someone but without the stilts, and it's really cool. But one of the coolest things are other events outside. One of the years they had an Assassin's Creed jungle gym style thing. It had a huge line, so I wasn't able to actually do it, but I watched it for a little while, and it was really cool, even just to watch. People would run up this ramp, they'd jump up, grab onto a rope like it's Ninja Warriors or something, they'd swing across some crazy thing, and then be doing all kinds of tricks, and the goal was, you know, to get to the end. Also, like Ninja Warrior. And it was just so cool and random. Very unexpected. There's also an entire Adult Swim thing that happens in the back of Comic-Con usually every year. I think it's a more recent thing, but super cool to just like go back there, and Adult Swim's back there, and you can see back when Adventure Time was around, and still being filmed. They had Adventure Time themed things, and it's just, oh god, I really enjoy all the events that happen around Comic-Con. You don't even have to be inside of Comic-Con to enjoy the events. So in closing, Comic-Con is awesome, and I really miss it. It's super unfortunate that the virus canceled it this year. You know, well, there are bigger things going on with this virus. I'm not going to pretend that Comic-Con is the most important thing in the world, but it's one of the most important things in my world, and I really miss getting to be a part of it. And it's like, it's right now is when it's supposed to happen, so I just really miss it. And I can't wait for next year. It's going to be a gangbuster Comic-Con year, I think, because everybody's going to be so hyped after 2 years of not being able to go. But yeah, that's why I miss Comic-Con. That's why it's so cool. And I hope that anybody watching gets to go to Comic-Con or just go to San Diego during Comic-Con and take part in the events that happen outside. Trust me, it will be worth it. Yeah, so if you didn't the first time, crush that like button down below. Give me a subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I would really appreciate it, and it really helps the YouTube algorithm. I am Chris again with Nerd in the Sun, and I will catch you next week.